So as you can see, this is a little bit of a different interior shot to what we're used to on this channel. As you saw from my first video on this car, the carpet was heavily saturated. The fix is an easy one. It's a fairly common problem on 996s. Just needs new door membranes. They've been replaced either side, but because the carpet was so heavily saturated, there's only one thing that would cure it, and that was it coming out and drying in the sun. The moisture has now gone, which means it's time to put it back in. Took a couple of hours to remove it. It'll probably take me a little bit longer to put back because I've got the DIY skills of an orangutan, but if I can do it, then you definitely can. We'll see how we get on. Okay, so last video you'll recall I mentioned that tyres all round on this car were shot, as well as of course the discs and pads. We'll come to the discs and pads in a minute, but just to again jog your memory, the tyres on the back didn't match the tyres on the front, and also the tyres on the back, they weren't N-rated. I like to have the tyres to be N-rated because they've been crafted especially for the abnormal weight load, shall we say, of the 911. I've gone with Continental Sport Contact 2s. It's actually quite an old tyre, it's an old tread pattern, but nevertheless they're still available on the 996 and they are still N-rated. This is the third 911 that I've had these tyres fitted to, and to be honest I really like them. It's just nice now to have matching tyres on the front and rear, and we'll see how we get on and have a bit more of a proper appraisal out on the road. In terms of brakes, I've gone for EBC. Again, this is the third 911 that I've had EBC brakes fitted to. The discs themselves are factory spec. The pads are Yellowstuff, which is basically for fast road and occasional track use. I think it's a really nice, reasonable upgrade, and I would say there's not too many aftermarket products out there that can hold a candle to the factory stuff, but in my opinion, this certainly does the trick. The brakes and tyres were both fitted at Porsche Centre Bournemouth, and Vince there also tweaked the 996's geometry ready for its next adventure, which was a big one. 1 week later, the 996 and I were bound for mainland Europe for a 1,800 mile 5-day trip. The first leg took us to the Nordschleife and a manufacturer test day where, among others, we captured Porsche's electric Taycan prototype in action. From there, we hit up the Autobahn for a top speed run, the 996 managing to chalk up a respectable 270 kph off camera. A pit stop at the Porsche Museum followed for that ubiquitous shot out the front, before following on to Roof Automobile at Pfaffenhausen. More on that another time. Leaving Bavaria, we returned to France via Switzerland, headed for Dijon, specifically a ribbon of road with a rather apt name for a drive in a 996. Road trips are great fun, aren't they? I always try to do at least one a year. It's good for the soul. I love everything about a road trip. It's the adventure, it's the seeing new sights, it's absorbing new cultures, and ultimately driving new roads. Get the nose in. Yes. So here we are then, driving the D996 in the Porsche 996. It is a lovely little road. I say little, it stretches for a good 60 kilometres. Unless you're right at the south of France, you just consider most of the country to be quite flat, fairly monotonous countryside, not overly renowned for good driving roads. But this absolutely bucks the trend, and it's one of a number of roads in this area that will, again, name-wise, hold quite particular interest with those of a Porsche persuasion. We've got the D996, heading north on this, we'll soon come to the D901, There's also the D965, the D959. So what do we have with the D996 then? Well, it's fairly fast. The road surface is less than perfect. Not sure if you can pick it up, but it's quite undulating. It's therefore a very good test of chassis. Lots of twists and turns in the road, a couple of hairpins, but otherwise it's quite flowing. But it's also extremely well sighted and largely bereft of traffic. We've not really seen anyone. It's 10 to 4 on a Friday afternoon. Makes for a really cracking road. And again, one that's not particularly on the radar of most people within the automotive stratosphere, if you like. These cambers are awesome. Look at that. Oh. The big question really in terms of my own ownership experience with this car is, am I starting to click with it? Am I starting to gel with it? The answer is a resounding yes. Definitely feel like I'm starting to get a bit of a connection with this car now and really appreciate it for what it is, and that is a cracking bit of car for the money. I love the fact it's rear drive. It's my first rear drive 911. It's something that's just nice and fluid about the rear drive C2s. Proportionally, this is such a tiny car now. It's crazy to believe, isn't it? Placing the car on the road is not a problem at all. I love the pedals, the placing of them, the feel of them. The other thing is 300 horsepower. Who needs more? Who needs more? The suspension does need to be looked at. A lot of parts underneath this car are 21 years old. They're going to be well past it, and on this sort of road that is really highlighted. I feel like the car is reacting to bumps long after it's travelled over them. It's also been a fabulous opportunity to put the EBC brakes to the test, particularly with regards to the high-speed autobahn runs. I just really rate them. I really rate them. There's so much feel through that pedal. Whereas before with the knackered old factory discs and pads, I felt like every time I pushed that middle pedal, it was a bit like standing on a tennis ball. Just nothing happened, and it was, well, at times terrifying, to be honest. The EBCs have brilliant initial bite to them, and it's so confidence inspiring. You can also lean quite substantially on the brakes, and there's not a particular fade in performance, although I've not tracked the car yet. So the brakes are a huge win on this car for me, a huge plus point, especially for the money. The road trip has also provided a nice little test for the Continental tyres as well, and as I said when they were getting fitted at Porsche Centre Bournemouth, it's a tyre I know quite well. And the reason I like them is they work quite well from cold, and to be honest, I just like the way they feel. I like the way they roll on the shoulder of the tyre. Mix all of that in with a brilliant road like the D996, and you're going to have some fun. It's kind of weird because, let alone sharing the same name, I kind of feel like this road was made for this car.